Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Another video on my Sierra Sapphire Cosworth. And today, well, you join me in beautiful sunshine at Simply Ford here at the National Motor Museum in Bewley. And it's been a brilliant day. Over 1,000 Fords have turned up today, which is quite fantastic. Now you'll know if you've been watching this video series that I've been looking to bring, well, the target really was to bring my Ford Sierra Sapphire Cosworth here to Simply Ford 2023. So the big question, is the car ready? Well, in a minute, I'll turn the camera around and you'll find out what did I bring. But in this video, what you can expect, I'll be covering off everything that I've done with the engine. That was the promise, everything that's happened so far with that Sierra Cosworth engine that you know I've had rebuilt. And I've done some quite unique things with it, so do stay tuned for that. And also, if you're still with me at the end of the video, well, I'll show you my favourite cars here today at Simply Ford. Right, let's turn the camera around and I'll show you what I brought. Was it the Sierra? Ready? And the answer is no. Today we brought our Ford Focus RS Mark III, which, as I'm sure you can imagine here at Simply Ford, well, there's loads of them, but we enjoyed the drive up and it looks fantastic, parked here in this row of Fords. What's happened with the Sierra? Well, we've got some electrical problems. In fact, I'm going to hand over to myself a few days ago to run through exactly where we are with the Sierra Cosworth engine. I'm driving my Ford Sierra, but don't get too excited. I'm not driving my Ford Sierra Cosworth. I'm actually in my 1992 Ford Sierra XR 4x4 that I've owned for 8 or so years. Actually, do get excited. I'm in my XR 4x4 Sierra. I love this car. It's done what, 58,600 miles from new, and I believe it's only ever featured once before here on the channel, back in July 2021, when I took this car all the way from here in Cornwall up to Birmingham, to Gaydon in Birmingham, for the XR Owners Club National Meet there at the British Motor Museum. If you haven't seen that video, please do take a look. It was a great day. Anyway, I'm currently driving to my Ford Sierra Cosworth, which is currently parked up in one of my garages. You see, progress on the restoration of my Sierra Cosworth, well, it's kind of stalled a little bit, but I'll tell you all about that a little bit later in this video. I promised you this video would be about that YB Cosworth engine, about everything that I've done with it, my plans, and everything that's going to happen with it in the future. So that's what I'll cover in this video. First though, let's do a bit of a recap on the health of the engine and kind of what's been going on so far. And you recall, if you've been following this series from the beginning, that I first bought this car up in Scotland and drove it 504 trouble-free miles all the way from Scotland to here in Cornwall in July 2022. The car drove really well, but on overrun, I was getting kind of puffs of smoke coming out of the exhaust, which we all know is usually worn valve stem oil seals or piston rings. My plan at that point was to sort those two issues out and then, I suppose, drive and enjoy the car for the next 12 to 18 months before ploughing into what I expected to be a fairly light restoration of the car, to be honest. Anyway, whilst the car was in Tour Point MOT, we decided to take the engine out to assess it properly and to address an oil leak. On investigation, we found impact marks on the tops of the pistons and evidence that the car had been over-fueling and it had scorched the bores. If you're going to do something, you just as well do it properly. So the engine was transported over the River Tamar to there in Plymouth, where it went to Paul Inch Engineering, who fully rebuilt the engine. Meanwhile, my Garrett turbo, well, it had some movement there in the impellers. So I sent it off to Turbo Technics for refurbishment, and in the end, as you already know if you've been watching this series, I had the turbo completely rebuilt with hybrid internals. And finally, that ugly aftermarket oil breather, well, it was removed, and I sold it to Mick, a friend of mine who intends to use it on his twin turbo 441 brake horsepower Mark I Sierra XR 4x4. Good luck, Mick. And also my Cosworth rocker cover, well, that was professionally restored and it was painted. The car was then moved to Alvin Powell Motorsport. And well, if you've been watching this series of videos on my Sierra Cosworth restoration, well, this brings us pretty much up to date. You see, when I bought the car, the engine management had been modified. Specifically, the ECU had an amide biochip installed and an alleged power output of around 300 brake horsepower. Now, I'm not entirely sure that I believe those performance figures. It certainly didn't feel like 300 brake horsepower on the drive back from Scotland. Yes, it felt quick, but my Focus RS Mark I is around sort of 300 horsepower, and it is much livelier than the Sierra. Anyway, I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about what sort of power I want my Sierra Cosworth to put out and what type of engine build that I want for my car. You see, my car's had a full structural, a full cosmetic, a full mechanical restoration. And so I suppose that makes it as close to a new Sierra Cosworth as you can get today. And that got me thinking. So I had a conversation with Alvin. I was keen for the car to be as close to the standard power, around sort of 220 brake horsepower, maybe a little bit more. But I wanted to bring that YB Cosworth engine a little bit more up to date. I'd like it to be tuned to run on modern fuels with modern technologies to help improve the way that it runs and the way that it performs. So that's what we've done. I believe people call this a resto mod, albeit I want to keep the car as close to standard as I possibly can, and I want to make things completely reversible so that I can return the car to a completely standard car in the future if I ever want to. With this in mind, my brief to Alvin was a fully rebuilt engine running as close to standard brake horsepower as we can, certainly no less, and benefiting from more modern technology and modern day reliability. And I want the power delivery to be nice and clean, smooth and linear and really drivable. Don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against those big power Cosworths. In fact, I think they're really, really impressive. For me though, I want a car that's kind of standard in look and feel, but maybe has that modern twist to it. And well, that's what Alvin's doing for me. And I'll come on to the full spec in a moment. But before that, take a look at this. When restoring cars, well, there are long periods where not a great deal happens. And then there are concentrated periods where loads happens, where there's loads of progress. And on the subject of progress, well, there's been some today. I am so excited. Today is a big day in my Sierra Cosworth build. You see, the engine has actually been on Alvin Powell Motorsport's dyno for nearly 2 weeks now. It was built up on the dyno, and then Alvin realised that we needed a fuel pressure regulator. So I ordered one, but it didn't come. It took a long time to come. So I ordered a second, and well, guess what? Both arrived on the same day. That was this morning. So Alvin's fitted the fuel pressure regulator, and he started the car this morning, and it's running. My engine is running. I say he started the car. Well, he started the engine because the engine is on a dyno. So I'm driving there right now, first of all to pick up the second fuel pressure regulator because I need to return that one back to Brands Hatch Performance. And secondly, to see my newly rebuilt Sierra Cosworth engine actually running on the dyno. I cannot wait. Let's go and take a look. So Alvin Powell Motorsport in Saltash, just inside Cornwall. We're a Cornish car channel after all, so we use Alvin, and Alvin came highly recommended by Paul Inch, who rebuilt the engine for me. And well, I've been really pleased with Alvin's work so far. He really gets what I'm trying to do with this engine, as I mentioned earlier, and has been really supportive and really guided me through this engine rebuild. Now, we're going to see it today. It's only started for the first time today. It's been started, and Alvin's actually going to be doing the tune work tomorrow. And unfortunately, I'm not able to go into there tomorrow to see this work happening, which is a real shame, but I am pleased to be able to go in and see it running today. So, yeah, super excited. So let's drive to Alvin's. So what has Alvin done? Well, you may have spotted in the video there, we've actually done away with a distributor, single coil and leads, replacing it with individual coils for each spark plug, which have also been replaced with NGKs. The engine has had 4 new Bosch injectors replacing the greens that were in there, and a new bottom or crank pulley. Also, we have put an original dump valve back on the car and a new fuel pressure regulator, because everything else is new on the engine. Plus, many of us will have seen the devastating outcome of a few old fuel pressure regs that have failed on Cosworths. And finally, to run the new setup, an MBE ECU has been prepared by Alvin and put on the engine. And you can see that ECU actually running the engine on the dyno in the video. I know what you all want to know. How much power was my Cosworth engine making sat there on the dyno? And remember, I want close to, with a bit of betterment, close to that standard power figure for a Sierra Cosworth. And to find out how much power it's making, we have to stay tuned to this series of videos, and I promise I'll reveal all in the final video, both how much power the car's making and how much it cost me to restore my Sierra Cosworth, right in that final video where we reveal the car completed. So please do stay tuned to this series. Now that Alvin had finished preparing the engine, well, it was transported to Torpoint MOT. And you saw in the last video on my Sierra Cosworth, the car itself being moved from MK Body Shop to Torpoint MOT, meaning the engine and the car are in the same place for the first time in 6 months. And a big shout out to Vinny and to John of Torpoint MOT, who spent several days meticulously putting the engine back into the Sierra, cleaning, refurbishing, and really taking care, getting the engine in just right. I'm absolutely chuffed with how it's gone. And look, the Cosworth cam belt cover is back on the engine. Hooray! And as for the rocker cover, well, that's still wearing its fresh coat of red paint. Well, it needs to go back into Paul Inch at some point in the future to have the top milled, revealing the aluminium and returning it to an OEM finish. And it wasn't all Vinny and John there at Torpoint MOT. I rolled my sleeves up too and cleaned the under tray and a few other parts, and I polished the exhaust. Here, check out the results. So with all of this progress, with a running engine now returned back into a fully restored shell, why have things stalled with my Sierra Cosworth restoration? And why has my car, well, why is it in this garage, and why has it been there for 2 or 3 weeks? Let me show you. Now, when it comes to this project, I keep using the word stalled, but I don't think that's really the right word for it. You see, to stall, first of all, you have to start. And well, this car won't start. And that's despite the fact that there is a fully rebuilt and running engine installed up there under the bonnet. And the reason that it won't start is because, well, this needs to be fitted, the new ECU for the car. As I said earlier, Vinny and John at Torpoint MOT have been absolutely fantastic. They've done an amazing job fitting that engine and going to meticulous detail to get everything right. But when it comes to fitting this new ECU, which has to run alongside the existing one, which is in under there somewhere, and fit this new loom, and chase out a few other electrical problems and remove an old aftermarket kind of 90s redundant alarm that was on the car. The alarm itself is gone, but some of the cabling is still in here. Well, that's a whole different kettle of fish, and it does sit outside of their sphere of expertise. So with that in mind, well, I've got to find an auto electrician, a good auto electrician, Someone who's a bit old school, who doesn't mind kind of going through all the wiring in the car, chasing down a few problems and really putting this car's wiring back to how it should have been when it was new, alongside putting this on the car, that new loom, and tidying away some of the cables there under the bonnet. Now, it's been quite difficult to find someone like that, but I have found someone, and the car next week is off to R&S Motors in Saltash, who I know really well and trust completely. They will do this work to a really high standard, which is what this car deserves. The problem is, well, they're a busy garage and they couldn't do that work until the beginning of June, and that's why it's sat in this garage for so long, and I've missed all of this lovely driving weather. Anyway, by the time that you're watching this car won't be in this garage anymore. It's actually been collected again by MK Bodywork. It's gone back into the body shop to have a few jobs done. It's having the newly refurbished spoiler fitted, some grommets put back into the floor, new trim clips fitted there to the side skirts, an adjustment to the rear door as it's catching slightly, replacement door handles, the rear number plate lights are going back in the car, and a few other bits. And we're also going to see what can be done about the exhaust on this car. You see, it's back on the car, and I just feel the tailpipe is hanging a little bit too low for my liking. So we'll see what we can do with that. And from MK Body Shop, well, this car is going straight to R&S Motors for the next stage of this restoration to start. Getting the electrics absolutely right. I cannot wait to see the results of that. And well, as you can see, there's still lots more work to do on this car. Once the electrics are right, well, the car's got to come back to me. We'll get this cleaned up in here because it's pretty dusty. Get the original steering wheel back on the car, get rid of those 3 aftermarket gauges, put the vents back in, and then start to refit the interior. I'm really excited about doing that and doing it absolutely right. So please do stay tuned for all of that. Anyway, I said that I'd give you a full update on the engine. That's it. I'm sorry that you can't hear the engine running in the car right now, but I'm sure on the next video we'll get to that. But do let me know your thoughts on what I've done with the engine, whether you think I've done a good thing by putting that modern twist on that YB Cosworth engine, or whether I should have kept it standard. I'd really like to hear all of the opinions right across the spectrum, so do let me know in the comments below. Right, let's get back to Simply Ford. Well, there you go. There's the update on the Sierra Sapphire Cosworth. It's frustrating that the car's not here, but you can't rush these things. My goodness, restoring cars takes time and nothing ever really goes to plan. The goal still is to get the car on the road in 2023, fully restored, and get it to some of the shows. Just wasn't meant to be that it's here for 2023 Simply Ford. It'll be at the next one. I promised you that I'd do a quick run through of my favourite cars here at the show today. Someone's looking for Harry over there, but as I say, quick run through of my favourite cars at the show today. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, to comment and to subscribe. Thanks for watching the series. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Bye bye.